All right. Well, it is a happy Tuesday right now as we're recording, and I'm here with the dynamic duo that taught downtown this weekend. To my left, you know him as Frank or the Big Bible Daddy. Frank, how you doing?
Doing great.
All right.
Doing great. Now I'm a Big Bible Papa.
Big Bible Papa, because you are a recent grandpa.
Yep.
And how's that going so far?
It's awesome.
You just get to spoil him and send him home, right?
Yep. Yeah. It's kind of cool to see my daughter, mother.
That is awesome.
Kind of cool.
That's super cool.
It's beautiful.
All right, and to my right, we have what I call the Swiss Army knife. Natalie Goins, you teach, you sing, you do tech. You really do it all, right?
Like we mentioned, I don't do men's ministry, but
no
other
men's
than that,
yet. No men's ministry yet.
right. I mean, I could try to offer a few ideas.
We're going to pray about it. But all right, well, as I'd mentioned, these two team taught, which I think is such an amazing concept, just teaching with somebody bouncing ideas off of each other and then sharing the pulpit together. So you guys team taught this weekend, and I want to know, what was your favorite thing?
Yeah, well, I just have a ton of, I already have respect for Frank. He's awesome in so many ways, but I think afterwards, it just grew in respect for you, Frank, because you're very smart, you're well-read, you wrestle with things deeply, and I think whenever you teach with someone else, you gotta wrestle through stuff, figure out, I think you stretch each other as you teach with them, because you both gotta agree on everything you're saying, and then it's an experience, you're up there and you're both a little nervous and so then stuff happens in my life during the week, stuff happened in your life during the week, and so you're trying to but then we want to meet and practice, and so there's a lot of dynamics that go into it, but I just had a ton of fun with you, Frank. It was a lot of fun, and I learned I texted you afterwards, it was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had, just doing that with you, so it's fun.
That's awesome. Frank, what was your takeaway from it?
A lot of fun as well. Mm-hmm. It was really cool to be able to work together and work out the outline, work out the details, hear about each other's life. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun. And it was really cool to be able to let somebody else do the majority of the work. And
okay. Yeah. How so?
Well, I just, I like to equate it to this way. It was like, in high school, and I used to cheat off people's paper in school. It was like I was doing that with Natalie. Cheating on her homework,
so
copying it.
Sorry, I didn't. Go ahead, Tim. All you.
Behind the screen, so they obviously wrote their manuscript together, which I think is what Frank's implying.
Yeah.
In case you're wondering, what's Frank talking about? They compiled it, kind of their notes, and from my understanding, you did a lot of that.
Well, so something that I want to grow in is just in sermon writing, being able to unpack a theme, being able to take a theme from, an excerpt in scripture and just be able to find a common theme and unpack it. I haven't had as much practice to do that as some of the other teachers. And so I kind of, asked, hey, can I run with the manuscript? And so I feel like I did some of the bare bones, but I think we really worked through a lot of the content. And so I don't think I did most of the work. I don't think I could have done it without Frank. Let's just say
I'm
that.
I'm just saying, I think I found a new sermon writer.
So.
Oh man. But yeah, no, it was a huge blessing to do that with you, Frank. But it was interesting because there were a few times when we were sitting down and rehearsing and running through it where either Frank would say something and I'd be like, oh, Frank, I don't know if I agree with that. And then, or I would say something and Frank would be like, oh no, Nat, I don't know if that's biblical. And we would work through some of that. And it was really good because I think people think that we just, if you're a Christian, you're on the same staff, you just all agree on things. And there was a few different topics where we had to there's one time we both closed our laptops. We're like, no, we're going to talk through this. Which we were pretty vehement on this is how we believe on this. But that was so good because can people even have healthy dialogue anymore? Not very much. And I think it was under, we both respect and love each other, in a very brotherly, sisterly way. And so we were able to do that, I think so.
Yeah, it made a better product.
Yeah.
Really,
totally.
It really did.
For sure.
Yeah, it's not just two people just writing something together. It is two humans interacting and, as you said, dialoguing and just learning more about each other. And so, yeah, from my understanding, I think we're going to discuss some of those things.
Yeah.
Here on. Yeah. I left my referee shirt at home, but as Nat had mentioned, you guys care about each other. So really what we're doing is just kind kind of pointing out these points of view, I guess. That's even some questions that maybe some of you listeners might have. I would guess that the points of view that we're going to represent kind of this thought process some of you guys may
I
have.
just want to first point out, number one, the bruise on her arm was not from our debating and conversation. Natalie played in a
You just
soccer
can't see the bruise on his arm.
Natalie played in a soccer tournament all weekend.
It was from Frank, but I'm just kidding. No, I got elbowed by a girl, and I
You should see the other girl. No. All right, that's how we're going to start.
Thanks for clarifying that, Frank. I mean, so.
Does it hurt?
It does, yeah.
Ouch.
So I'm just kind of, I'm here to look pretty, I guess, because you guys are going to do a lot of the good dialogue and talking, but kind of this first topic I want to talk about, and I think I'll just kind of say it and let you guys run with just the thought process behind it. But the cost of discipleship, it was mentioned in your guys's message, to where there might be two views on cost of discipleship. You guys want to take it away?
Sure, go ahead, Frank.
One of the funny parts of the sermon was when she says, it's been talked about, the cost of discipleship. Dietrich Bonhoeffer wrote a book on it. Jesus even spoke about it, the pick up your cross and follow me. But recently, Christian philosophers have pushed back against that.
I know, we laughed about that.
Yeah. I was like, well, I mean, Jesus was right.
I know. Yeah. I'm like, well, and Jesus said that, but then recently...
little old age versus new age kind of vibe. Yeah.
No, that was funny. Well, yeah, so just unpacking it. So in my personal life, I grew up a lot hearing, there was a lot, maybe it was a worldview of just, it leaned very heavily into, the Christian life is hard, it's dangerous. If you're not uncomfortable in your current life predicament, then maybe you're doing something wrong. You need to work super hard, and it's going to hurt. And I think, and again, yes, Jesus says, pick up your cross and follow me. And Paul says, I die daily. And Jesus would tell people the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head, and so there were, John the Baptist ate locust and all of that, and so
it was dipped in honey.
Okay, so it was all right, yeah. But I would experience us leaning so far into that I almost would feel, and I would read books that could say it. It was what I was thinking, but these authors would say it way more eloquently than I could. That we lean so far into that we forget the beautiful side of following Jesus here on earth. And so we kind of had to flesh that out as we were talking about it a little bit, for sure.
Yeah. Definitely had to change some language around.
Yeah.
So, because throughout Scripture, you see a lot of, yes, Jesus is inviting us to an abundant life, but he's also calling the cost of discipleship. He makes comments like, he who does not hate his father, mother, and wife, and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life cannot be my disciple, right? And so we must love God more than ourselves, more than others in our families and stuff, and even our own life. So that's a huge cost.
Right. I think though that's like a cost, comma, and then the other side is shared instead of cost, period. If that makes sense.
Right. And I would agree with that 100%. But we can't forget the cost of it, because we talk about following Jesus is fun, adventurous, and peaceful. That's not always the case. Maybe here in America.
See, but so I would probably push back on that, because I think that so Jesus talks about his easy yoke. He says, I have brought an easy
burdens.
Right. I have brought an easy yoke. So it's this idea that we're not, there's a cost, comma, but he's doing it with us, and he's provided us the manual and the rhythm to be able to live a life full of joy. In your presence, there's fullness of joy, as Psalm 16 would say. And so I guess that I don't think it should be there's a cost to discipleship, period. It should always be there's a cost, but it is worth it, fulfilling, and you get to gain your life.
Right.
Almost like it's the same cost that a baby would leave a womb and go through an uncomfortable birth canal into newness of life. It's that the womb was warm, protected.
It was the best thing they knew up until then.
Yeah. But then the birth canal probably is just horrible for the baby. I mean, that they have to fit in this little tiny the cervix and all of that. But then
not fun.
Then newness of life, the best life they could ever imagine. So it's it's like this idea that that's, I think, the cost. And then, so I think little cost, incredible life.
Right. So in the preparation, though, the cost part was minimized by the big, abundant life. I think you even used the word your best life.
Yeah.
Right. So,
yeah.
And I have no problem with that. I'm just saying it.
Wait, so real quick, little cost, abundant life. You disagree with like the little?
No.
Okay,
I was going to say, I shared a story in Matthew 19 about the rich young ruler, the rich young man that comes, and Jesus says, "Hey," he says, "Hey, I followed everything. What else need to be saved? Hey, give up your possessions. Come follow me." I can't do that. I'm going to stick with my possessions. And then toward the end of that story, you have in verse 27. Then Peter said in reply, "See, we have left everything and followed you." Like, what then will we have? And Jesus said to them, "Truly I say to you, in the new world, when the Son of Man will sit on his glorious throne, you who have followed me will also sit on the 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And everyone who has left their houses or brothers or sisters or father or mother or children or lands for my name's sake will receive 100-fold and will inherit eternal life."
Right.
And I think the abundant life that he's inviting us to not only is the empowering work of the Holy Spirit here now and the living out with the Christian body, but it's eternal rewards, the eternal benefit of following him.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think, right, and I guess I would just say that I think that eternal life is, I think eternity is now in session in a way of like eternity, like Jesus in John 17 said, "This is life eternal, knowing me." So today we get like access to eternal life in this way of like, we get to experience God's kingdom today. It's like now and not yet, right? And so I guess I would just say that I had this quote. So Dallas Willard, he said, "One of the lies in our culture today, our Christian culture, is it's hard to follow Christ." He says, "No way. It's the easy way. The transformation of the self is what leads to the blessed life, and this is what Jesus is after." And so I think it's this idea that, like, yes, there's a cost when we have to, like, we die to ourselves, right? Like, we get a new heart, we get a new flesh, new, we have a newness of life, and it hurts to die, like death hurts, but like, we die so that we can live. And so I guess I would still say little cost, big abundant life. Like, I'd probably stand behind that. However, so anyways, that's more.
No, I would agree with you.
Right.
I'm just saying that cost is a lot bigger in the flesh than it is. Because if you're looking at some of the people that I know that come to faith lost family over it.
Sure.
They lost jobs over it. They lost their heritage over it. And they had to move out and go find something else because of their faith in Christ and their public proclamation of being a follower of Jesus. So, go ahead. I was going to say, so it's hard in the fact that you lose things in this life, but it pales in, and I think we said it on Sunday, it pales in comparison to what your life is without Christ in it.
100%. I fully agree with that. Yeah. And no, I think that's the danger in, and obviously, we've all heard of the prosperity gospel where they say you get material wealth, and if you follow Christ, you'll be rich and you'll have great health and well-being. And that's obviously not what Jesus promises us. So what I'm hearing you say, Frank, is like, we can't minimize that it is going to cost us stuff here on earth. And I would agree with that. I guess I would just say, like, even when we lose family, or, I think of people, like you mentioned off the podcast, in Iran, or, people who, if they become a Christian, their family disowns them. And like, that's a cost, like, no doubt. I guess I just trust, based on the passage you just read and other passages, like, I think it's Proverbs 18 that says God sets the lonely in families. So this idea that he will give us back and then some, everything we lose. So I guess it's kind of like so anyways, that's kind of just what I think. But I guess I just feel like there's a huge danger when we lean too far into the cost, the drudgery. It's so fatalistic when I'm like, who's going to want this life? Who's going to even there's like, I don't know. I just feel like that can be dangerous if we lean too much into the cost and don't share that. Yeah.
I think we're going through the joyride right now of Paul. Paul's had a hard life, right? He's been probably responsible for murdering people and throwing them in jail. He's been beaten himself to the point of death. He's been in prison for false charges or, things. So all these things that happened to Paul, and he's still got that eternal perspective. And I don't think he would say his life is easy. I don't think he would say that his life is fun. But he does say, I count everything as lost because of the surpassing worth of knowing Jesus Christ, my Lord.
Right.
And I think, yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of setting some out there, little cost compared to the abundant life, like if you're putting them in perspective, right? Because you're not necessarily saying the cost is little, but compared to an abundant life.
Sure, right.
I don't want to take away from what you're saying.
Oh,
though,
no, yeah. Well, and I think once you start experiencing the abundant life and the riches of Christ, the cost feels smaller and smaller.
Okay.
I think personally,
I think I could.
Even the cost of I think to myself, certain pleasures or sins that I can think to myself, you know what, it'd be awesome to, and probably pleasurable to have been able to indulge in certain sins that my flesh wanted. But as you walk more and more with Christ, you start to see sin as the disgusting thing that it is. And then you're I know that I don't need that. I know that that's not really going to help me. So I think that I think as you walk more and more with Jesus and you start to experience more of the abundance and what doesn't help you experience more of the abundance, then I think the cost feels maybe smaller and smaller.
If I'm coming into this I'm not a Christian. I'm hearing Jesus' call to discipleship, and I'm recognizing this is going to cost me. It's going to cost me the way I've lived my life. It's going to cost me my friendships. It's going to cost me what I do on Sunday mornings. It's going to cost me how I spend my money, how I invest my time. It's going to cost me in maybe if I have some sexual relationships that are out here doing whatever I want.
Yeah.
That's the cost. And so people coming into Christ saying you're going to have your best life now, as a non-Christian, I'm having my best life now. I'm doing everything I want, when I want, and how I want it. And you're calling me to this Christian life that's completely different, and I'm going to have to give this stuff up. That's a huge cost that people, as a non-Christian, they need to understand.
Yeah, but again, I don't think we sell the cost outside of selling the, gosh, this sounds like a sales pitch, but we don't say it outside of the beauty that they gain.
Right. 100%. Jesus is the gold standard, the beauty, the Savior, and everything. And I think that's what people say, and they realize, like Paul says, that's dung compared to Christ. That's worthless and could go in the trash compared to knowing Christ. And I think you get there when you're regenerated.
Exactly.
When you're not regenerated, that's what you want.
Yes. But I think people are more in bondage in their lives without Christ than they realize. And so I think it would be wrong to assume that someone thinks they're living their best life now outside of Christ. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. I guess I just would hope we don't just sell the cost when trying to bring people in to experience Christ, but it's here's Christ, and you will have to give up these things, but you're going to get something even better.
I don't even that never comes into the equation when I'm talking to people. He is your only hope in this life and the life to come.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Yeah. Where are you going?
Right. Right.
Yeah. I'm a pictures person. So I'm you mentioned so the cost looks big when you're in the flesh. So I imagine there's a rock, and then in the flesh, where this pebble, abundant life is a boulder. So yes, if you're just an isolated event, you're just comparing the cost to our flesh, looks big. You compare the cost to the abundant life, the boulder obviously outshines or outweighs. So
yeah.
I don't think we're saying anything different. I think
Right.
we're emphasizing certain parts.
Sure. Yeah. I do have.
I'm saying we have to be both.
Yes.
And so are you.
Yeah.
But we're both leading with what we're willing to do both.
Right. Yeah.
And so one thing you guys both talked about, and I think something else you'll agree on, I just kind of want to maybe put words to it, is the extremes. So help me out. If you were to go to the extreme of this side where it's all just fun, you mentioned prosperity gospel, right? The extreme. So what is the extreme? Would it be legalism? The idea of really
focusing
100% on the cost?
Absolutely. Following Jesus is can be fun. 100% agree. This is fun. My job is fun. Not when I'm sitting there holding somebody that's weeping because their kid just attempted suicide. That's hard, right? But it's knowing that God has this. He's put me in that place at that time, and knowing that God's working and around that. That's. I wouldn't say fun. But it's, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I am like seriously concerned with people who share the gospel like it's too much of a drudgery. That's just all I have to. And that's how I think I often just experience so that's I'm not saying that's what Frank's saying, but that has been my concern with the way we talk about life here on earth with Jesus.
I remember as a kid, I was probably in middle school, junior high, and I was laughing, and the lady turned around and said, "Hey, you stop that. We don't laugh or smile in church."
Oh,
and
see,
I was like,
that is horrific.
Yeah.
Like, that is just like, we lose.
that's the other ditch.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's a harmful gospel, honestly. I think it's a harmful gospel message and I don't know if people think that.
Well,
yeah.
I have a friend of mine because we talked about Lord, previous to this, we were talking about knowing God's will for your life.
Yeah.
Remember that conversation? And one of my friends made the comment, I know what God's will for my life is. It's doing whatever I don't want to do.
Which I just don't agree with.
I don't agree with either.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the opposite of the ditch. If I want to go out and do this, and I have two choices. This one looks appealing and wonderful and good, and it's a career advancement or whatever, and I want to do that, well, God's will must be this for me. Boring, hard life. Because
totally, Frank. I totally agree with you. Like, and to clarify, when I said it's a harmful gospel, I don't mean that the true gospel message is harmful. I think it's a pseudo gospel of like, if you're not uncomfortable and in pain, then you must not be living the Christian life. Like, so anyways, but yeah, I agree with you in that, Frank. I just think there's a lot of joy that maybe Christians don't take hold of that they can, so.
That's a good way to put it.
To be honest, man, being a Christian is uncomfortable for me. And the fact that you're always opening up your home. I guess the hospitality piece is because you're always opening up your home to strangers and taking people in, and you're entering into their pain and their story as you're listening and helping them. So, I mean, every single day is uncomfortable for me.
Is it ever is it uncomfortable in a, okay, is the Christian walk more uncomfortable than comfortable for you?
No, okay, so I meant it comfortable as far as opening your home.
Okay, so that.
I feel at peace and I'm not worried about some heavy burdens being on me.
Okay, so it's uncomfortable in the fact that
it calls you to die to self and live for others.
But is there a lot of joy in getting to do that?
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah. So that's what I
wouldn't exchange it for anything.
Yeah.
Like I could take my tithe check and go buy a boat, right?
Yeah.
And I can go spend every Sunday out on the water.
Right.
It'd be fun.
Right.
But it's not eternal, and it's not doing anything to build a kingdom, and it's selfish, and it's
right. Well,
empty. Yeah.
Yeah. So right there, what I like to hear is not just, so I guess when I hear people talk about things being uncomfortable, what I like to hear is both sides of it. So, but both sides right there. You share, yeah. So you share, it's uncomfortable, open up my home all the time. But but yes, so I would love to hear Christians put that in the same sentence, if that makes sense. Because I think we lose people if we just do half the sentence. Yeah. So but I agree. I mean, there's sometimes I got to take, a group of kids home from Midway and they're loud in the car and I just want to get home and go to bed, and that's uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, they make me laugh and I learn, it's just so I think that we could do it would just be encouraging if we, share all sides of that, if that makes sense.
I think that's, kind of maybe the final word on this one. I like what you said, not half the sentence, and either half could be bad.
Yeah, right.
I'm uncomfortable as a Christian, end of message, not good.
Yeah.
It's nothing but fun. That can be misleading. So
I'm uncomfortable right now.
Okay,
I feel like my body's on fire and my head's on fire because I'm so nervous.
Honestly, it might be that the AC in this room isn't the best. But with that being said, let's move on. That was good, and that's just the first one. So next, I kind of want to talk about you guys, and I'm going to, again, let you do most of the talking because you guys had the conversations while you were prepping, this idea of our passions and desires, and maybe, I'll just leave it there, passions and desires. You guys talked about this idea of
Yeah. Oh,
sin
sorry.
not- yeah.
Yeah. Well, so there's a point in time when I had written out, like, we were talking about calling. So we talked about identity, apprenticeship, and calling. And I had written out on the paper, like, God's not against your desires. He wants to redeem them. And so, and very maturely, Frank was like, wait, yeah, God is against our, there's verses in scripture that say, where do your desires come from? They're, flesh and all of that. And so I was like, oh, okay. And I kind of had to wrestle through that. And that's when we closed all of our stuff and we talked in the third floor of our children's wing. And so feel free to run with that one, Frank. It looks like you're looking something up.
Oh, I was just going to pull up a verse that shows that you're wrong. No, just joking. Just joking.
This is what, this is good. I love it.
If you live according to the flesh, you will die. This is what you said. Read Romans 8. But if by the Spirit you put to death the deeds of the body, you will live. Mm-hmm. The deeds of the body, all that. I like the Rolling Stones song, Tim. You can't always have what you want. You can't always have what you want.
So I think what I was trying to say with that is this idea that I think behind every sinful desire we have, you guys know, we all have sinful desires. Like,
not Tim.
I think, but behind every sinful desire, there is a really beautiful desire that God actually wired within us. So let's just say you have sexual desires, as all of us in one way or another do. I think behind that is a deep desire to want to be known and loved and desire connection and healthy intimacy. But what does Satan do with all of our desires? He thwarts them. He makes them he thwarts them and he twists our desires and he makes us think that we're going to fill our appetites by popcorn instead of the real deal. You know what I mean? And so I guess I also feel a bit concerned when we don't look for what the deeper, genuine desire is behind our really twisted desires, if that makes sense. And I think God wants to redeem all of the twisted desires that we have. And I think we could do ourselves well, to think deeper, not different about our desires, but deeper about, okay, what are the good parts? Even someone who is a sex addict or something, their deeper desire, God gave us the gift of sex, right? In his container within a male-female marriage, right? In a covenant, a committed, covenant. And so, I think, even someone who's addicted in some sort of way, they're really desiring God's gift, but not in the right, container, And so I think that validating maybe that there is a good desire behind some of our twisted desires, but finding that, giving it to the Lord and letting him show you the good desire and how the best, most fulfilling way for you to fulfill that desire, if that makes sense.
So you're saying let's look to the root. Let's look beyond kind of the flower or whatever. Let's get to the root, redeem it, and then go from.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I don't disagree with that at all.
Nice.
I don't. But there is this point in a Christian life where you must work at being self-disciplined in your walk. And sometimes desires creep up, temptations creep up, right? And then you want to desire that bad thing. And we as Christians need to stop and kill it. It looks different than it for everybody because we're all different and wired differently and stuff. And so while I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, I've seen again, going back on extremes, I've seen the approach of God gave you that desire for whatever it is you want. Mm-hmm. It's not bad because it's rooted in who God created you. Therefore, I'm not going to really speak to that and let you do anything because I'm going to let you run with your desires. And I'm saying, okay, at the root, how God created us, I don't know, but other than the fact that because of sin, our desires, and Satan's thwarted it, our desires are continually evil and we want bad things.
Okay, so yeah, okay. I guess I would just hope that killing sin wouldn't be just a paint job, but more of like a total
Agree.
Yeah. So like I sometimes I hear someone say like gosh, I'm trying to think of an example. Yeah, I just need to stop doing that. And it's like, okay, let's think deeper about this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's completely unpack it, and so I think
As a counselor, I do this.
yeah,
with
for
people
sure.
all the time.
Right. I think again, like a full direction of discipleship is validating beauty where it needs to be validated, but also being very honest about what is very harmful and non-life-giving from desires that we might have. So yeah, I think we're agreeing on that one.
Yeah, Tim trying to make us fight.
I know. So what you're really saying, no, it kind of, so what I think of, and we can just say very general sin, where a lot of us, we try and plug the outlets. If I can get rid of the outlets, which, again, I almost need a whiteboard, because like...
Well, think about it this way. Well, you guys got houses, right?
Yes.
I do.
Have you ever had mold in your house?
I would like to not... yes.
I would like to
I
say
know.
no. I've never had mold, but
You have? You have.
So I've had mold in
Okay.
the bathroom, and so what happens? You clean it with stuff, or maybe you get a new detergent to wash it off the wall, right? And then what happens? It's still there,
Yeah.
and it's still going to come back up. You can even take it and paint it, and it's still going to come through because the evil's inside.
Yeah, or that wasp nest that's on the corner of my my garage. If I just kill all the wasps, that's cool, but that nest is still kind of brewing. So yeah, and it kind of looks like you guys, again, you're saying the same thing, but it's this idea where Nat's kind of looking at the root, you're looking at the flower, so to speak, but you guys both have the same view on kind of evil desires. But
This is what I love about conversations, that it doesn't happen, because so I work in a lot of areas where Braver Angels, we're working with Reds and Blues together politically, and a lot of the people agree.
Yeah.
They both want the same thing, but when you come at it with your thing, and I have my perceived how you're saying it,
Right.
and I'm going to say my thing, and you have your perceived how you're seeing it,
Right.
and then we put it to where our experience is from and how we think other people say that thing and what they think of them, and then all of a sudden we're enemies, and now we can't talk. We're going to close up our Bibles and go home.
Right.
And the cool thing about us is we had some disagreements on things, and we were able to say, okay, well, let's hold up, let's talk through it, and then we were able to have a dialogue just like this.
Yeah.
And then came out, we're actually kind of saying the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
works in person, not on a screen. I'm just putting a plug out there.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's important to make sure that you can re-say what you hear the other person saying, and then that's when the other person can be like, oh, wait, no, that's not what I said. What I'm saying is this. And so, yeah, totally agree with that. So
That's a big marriage tool, to be honest.
Oh.
Yeah.
Active listening. It's a big
Yeah.
relational tool. But
Yep.
all right, well, a few more things on my docket that I want to talk about, and I don't necessarily think they are disagreements, just things that came up. And so I want to talk about one more thing, and then I want to kind of end with kind of something you said in the message about testimonies, Frank. But before that, I want to talk about this idea of gossip. I think this is a conversation that came up. I personally don't know if you guys agree or disagree on this idea of, is all gossip bad? And again, gossip, you're really quickly, all gossip is bad, but we're going to unpack that a little bit. So I'll leave that question to you guys.
We had an interesting conversation earlier today on this topic. I had read an article, not by any Christians or anything, but it says this: psychologists say gossiping is a social skill. And here's how to know if you're doing it right. Pretty interesting article that kind of got me to click on it. And it says, the urge to share a juicy piece of news when you hear it is part of who we are and a natural characteristic of the species we become. And it talks about gossip being good for society and good to keep people connected.
Okay, right out of the gate, I'm going to say you're going to have to convince me. I think I'm in the boat of all gossip's bad, but
I'm there with you. I'm just saying.
But convince me. I'm willing to be convinced.
No, I think gossip's bad.
So Tyler and I listened to a really good podcast on. They were asking the same question because Christianity Today came out with this article about how we are so scared that we are going to commit the sin of gossip, that some churches actually don't talk about things that actually need to be addressed on their church staff, like inappropriate relationships, inappropriate texting, things that have gone too far. Out of fear of not wanting to gossip, things haven't been brought up, and then churches have had splits. There's been moral failures. Pastors have crossed the line. Not just pastors. I mean, so it was interesting because even when one of this Catholic Pope, I think about 10 years ago, condemned the act of gossip, saying it was one of the worst things ever. And then a bunch of accusations came out about like his church, and I was kind of thinking, man, you guys maybe should have talked about some of this stuff. Like,
Right.
But I guess it would be how we define gossip, but I don't think all talk behind someone's back is bad. I think that you have to check your heart. Is this talk meant to promote life, and is this talk meant to promote like future harmony later? Like what am I trying to say? Like you know in your heart, if you are sharing something that you saw or heard or this or that, if you have false motives there, if it's to feel good about yourself, if it's just to have information, if it's to throw dirt on someone, or if it's truly for healing and bringing something to light. And I think the right people that you should share that with, and all of that. And so I don't think gossip, and I don't know, it's kind of, it would be weird to say I don't think I could say that all gossip is.
You might almost be saying that the umbrella of gossip is too big.
Yes, I think so, because I don't think
authenticity.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think talking behind someone's back, I don't think that's always bad. If in your heart you truly believe a situation needs to be talked about and brought to light. And I'm sorry, when you're in a church setting, things happen and you got to talk about certain things, you have
to identify kind of your safe people.
Yeah. So
I've heard it said the sin of gossip is bearing bad news behind somebody's back out of a bad heart.
So a bad heart is
bad
very much, for sure.
And I would say gossip is divisive. It divides relationships, destroys trust, and then I would even say the pain that comes from gossip lasts a whole lot longer than those words are even spoken. Mm-hmm. So,
right.
I would say that when you don't have healthy boundaries, you don't make wise decisions. And so if you don't have healthy boundaries of what gossip is and isn't, you're going to make bad decisions on maybe holding back what you could be talking about. Or say, for instance, I knew Tim was doing something he shouldn't be doing, and I need to figure out how to approach him. Mm-hmm. I could come to you or Anthony or whatever and say, hey, Tim's doing this. What do you guys think I should do? How can I approach it? Can you come with me to talk to Tim about it? Like, I don't think that's gossiping.
So there's got to be forward intentionality about wanting to do something about it.
Right. I think in your heart why you're sharing something. I would agree with you, Frank, on divisiveness. Like, we're supposed to build the kingdom, and gossip like tears apart like so much. You had told me something, Frank, last week that I thought was good. Like, you were saying if you got to talk or grumble or complain up, like do it up. And like, so, if it's in a corporate setting or at church, you see something that looks a little hokey, sharing it up instead of
in our family we have something called complaint up the chain of command. I've even used it in places I've worked, and I learned it in the military. If we're both airmen in the Air Force and we can't fix the problem, us going back and forth and griping about whatever isn't going to fix anything. So you complain up the chain of command to fix the problem.
Well, that's something that we definitely try to apply here at River Valley. I think I shared it in my message a few weeks ago. No meetings after the meetings. Yep. So none of that side kind of the whirlpool. Complain up. And then my favorite one, I think your dad told us all this. If you're going to talk to your spouse or somebody close to you about somebody like twice, that's an indicator that person needs to be pursued and talked about.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and that's something that is actively employed here at River Valley, which it's hard, but I'm a big fan of. Sometimes, because sometimes gossip is juicy. Like, it's just like.
Yeah,
but it's.
I can see what you were saying earlier, Frank, about how like deep bonds can be formed on the basis of disliking someone else, and that's really messed up. Like that, because then what do you got to do every time to fuel that friendship? Oh, gossip. Like, and that's that's super
Talk bad about the person you're working with.
right. And that
Like all that stuff we said about Tim.
yeah, like yesterday.
No, they're
I know.
honest with me. They'll tear me. They'll stab me in the back and the front. No.
Yeah, but no, I
I would be
that's a good
really
point.
bummed. There would be no way, I think, to find this out. How many friendships, I would say specifically, maybe in the younger generations, might be started. Actually, no, I'm not going to limit it to them. Are started on the root of gossip. Like what you said, like, wow, Natalie on the podcast. I'm like, oh, hey, we're friends. Because like what you literally just said, probably a lot of friendships are like founded on kind of the dislike for somebody, and it'd be a bummer. Now that can be redeemed. That can be redeemed.
Right.
Yeah.
But
well, they say the friend of your or the enemy of your enemy is your friend.
yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But okay, once again though, going back to one of our previous discussions, why do we gossip? We want to connect with people. So I sometimes that's where I'm like saying that like I think it's okay to you're shaking your head.
I was just gonna say something.
Okay, well okay. So okay.
I was gonna wait though.
Oh no, it's good. Yeah, but like like we as humans, we desire intimacy and connection. So like that's the deeper desire behind gossip. Not all gossip, but that is a deep desire behind gossip. I think
It could be of gossip. It could be that I want to be powerful and want to tear Tim down.
So, but even a desire to
Maybe that's
want.
just me.
But
I'm
even a
evil.
desire to want to
I'm
be
evil.
powerful and impactful and stuff like that, I don't think that's. I think that there's a. See, I guess I would just argue that I think that there is a beautiful desire behind certain sins, and God actually gives. And I think a cool thing of like unpacking it is finding that beautiful desire.
Gotcha. So this is where we probably disagree, because I wouldn't use words like that.
Yeah.
You got a beautiful desire that you have behind it, but because of sin, it's poisonous and it's destructive and it's foolish.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that.
And yeah, I mean, I think that we have a sin nature.
Yeah.
But I think even in that, God still made us. We're His image bearers. We have, if we're regenerated, then we have a new heart, and God has entered into us. And so yeah, I do think there's like beautiful desires even behind fleshly nature, I guess I would say. Yeah.
I guess I just wouldn't use that language.
So what language would you use?
I guess I probably wouldn't say it's that simple. Because you do have God creating you in His image as being His image bearers. But you also have your sin nature and your desire for things that aren't good for you. And God's coming in and redeeming those things. He's redeeming who you are. And that's the sanctification process, right? What we talked about on Sunday is you're moving toward this, and you're never going to get there, but it doesn't mean your desires are all of a sudden good because you're a Christian.
Sure. Like, I definitely think that part of discipleship is like, kind of like what we talked about. God like strips what's harmful, not life-giving, destructive about our desires, and fans into flame the good parts of them. But yeah, so that's kind of, for sure. That's kind of, that's, I guess, how I would say it. But yeah, I like what you said.
Final thought?
No, we're good.
Okay, cool. Well,
I think, good discussion.
Oh, that was
Appreciate
great.
it. Yeah.
And one more topic. I don't think this one's a debate, but you guys had mentioned, and I thought it was really interesting, the idea of your testimonies and how oftentimes we as Christians, we pinpoint our testimony as a moment. And a big part of your guys' message was this idea that it is a journey.
Right.
Do you guys want to take a few minutes to speak to that before we wrap this up? Because I think that's really important for listeners to hear.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we talked about is this idea of this dynamic journey is some people think, and we was in our message at first, we pulled it out,
right.
that when you hear people and you say, hey, so give me your testimony to how the Lord's working in you, and they go back to 15, 20 years ago when they got saved, and that's it. And you're like, wait, hold on a second. Hasn't God been working in you ever since?
That's part one.
Right.
Yeah. So that's that idea of this dynamic journey of, so number one, God was working before you got saved. There's things that God did to bring you to that point of salvation, whether it's bringing you the end of yourself, whether it's bringing someone in your life to share that gospel message. So that there's a testimony there. There's a testimony on how you were converted. And then there's this testimony of growth that's God doing in you now. And that's that work of salvation we talked about Sunday is you are being saved. You're moving forward. You're working out your salvation with fear and trembling. And there's a lot of, I don't know. It's good stuff there.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, and this
Testimony.
is something Frank wrote out, and I thought it was really good, but we had to cut with like time and all that. But he was saying that like, yeah, how when like sometimes people's testimonies, it's like 50 minutes of what their life was like without Christ, and then I got saved. All right, the end. And I appreciated Frank bringing that up because it's so true. And like, I almost would love to hear someone's testimony. I would love to hear more of what's happened since that time of accepting God. Like, because we all, I mean, I guess there's varying degrees of, what people have participated in before coming to know the Lord. But we all have a similar story. We were in sin. God saved us. But we have different stories in the fact of what God has done in our lives since then. And so, but yeah, I was totally with you on that one, Frank.
Yeah.
So, yeah, woo, hey,
That's
me and
good.
Frank disagreed on something. That was no, I'm just kidding. No, I super appreciate the dialogue, Frank, and I think that you've taught me a lot, just even as was writing all of this. So,
Same.
cool.
And this is super stretching to be on here too. I don't like opposition and confrontation and debating.
Well, I want to assure you and you that they will be friends
Oh,
after
yeah.
this podcast.
Totally.
But no, I agree.
She's buying me coffee.
But before the
Definitely.
coffee, let's hit up some resources real quick. And I see that we got a book here. So just some resources on any of the topics we talked about. Let's go. Cost of Discipleship, Passions, Desires, Testimonies. What do you guys got? Let's keep digging.
Well, for testimonies, I would say just really take time to sit down and look how the Lord's working in your life, how He's worked in your life, what He's doing now, currently, and where do you see the Lord leading you. So that's a good work on testimony, figuring out how God's working you. And then, we measure what's important to us. We measure what we want to change. So one of the things that I did for me was looking at who I am as a person, my desires, my sins, my everything, and then like looking at it and say, this is how I want to be like Christ. How do I get there? And then looking at, it's kind of like a business terms, we call it a gap analysis. Like, this is where I'm at. This is what I want to be. And there's a huge gap here. How do I get to that point? And a big piece of it is prayer. It's reading the scripture and understanding what God has said and putting it in your heart and really living it out. And other piece is living in community with people.
Amen, yeah.
And understanding things. And, 15, 20 years ago, this discussion would have never happened, right? Just because of the place I was at. And so now we can have a discussion 15, 20 years later with a different Frank.
That's cool. That's neat.
And then Growing in Holiness by R.C. Sproul.
Okay.
Papa Sproul, as I like to call him.
Papa Sproul, don't we all?
The late Papa Sproul.
Yeah.
Growing in Holiness, great book. I loved it. It was very good for me. I even reread it again as we put together our message.
Nice. Yeah, I would say anything by Dallas Willard. I think he's just a pioneer for spiritual formation just in this cultural moment. So, yeah, appreciate him.
I say anything by R.C. Sproul.
I think R.C. Sproul and Dallas Willard would go nicely together. My sister loves R.C. Sproul. So,
I know.
Yeah.
So you might need to help me out. So we're talking about testimonies. Your brother, Pastor Tyler, wrote a nice blog that's on our website. Do you remember what the title was?
It was called 5 Blessings of a Boring Testimony. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's on our website and blogs. That's always just kind of stuck out to me because as you guys are maybe hearing testimony for the first time, you might have that, my testimony is boring, but I love that. I love what your brother wrote. So
Yeah.
that's just something pointing to our website.
That's actually, so as someone who's had a very different life, one of the big blessings I can give to my kids is a boring testimony. Like, I look forward to that. I have. My kids have boring testimonies per se, right? So it's just a cool blessing to be able to do that.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
As a parent.
That's an interesting thought. Cool thought. So, guys, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. That was enjoyable. Listeners, hope you guys enjoyed it.
Hey, somebody wake up Anthony.
Yeah. The man behind the camera is doing great. We're doing great. You guys have a great day. Catch you later.
See you later.